Do you love to draw cartoons but just really struggle with getting the hands to look just right? I'm BJ Tell and this is the Let's Draw series. In today's video, I'm going to show you some of the techniques I use to draw cartoon hands, along with some tips and tricks that you can do on your own to better understand the shape and the anatomy of hands. So if you want to learn all about that and more, keep watching. All right, guys, so let's jump into today's video. Like I said at the beginning, this is all about drawing hands. I want to say, first off, if you guys came here to learn how to draw realistic hands, I will not be showing that on this tutorial. This one's strictly cartoon style hands. If you've been to my channel before, you know my stuff skews really towards the cartoony side. It's the style that I feel the most comfortable with and really have the most enjoyment out of. I can draw realistically, but really when you start doing that, you've got to worry so much about making sure anatomy is perfect, making sure about perspective and everything else. And with cartoons, you kind of have that freedom to kind of twist reality on the side and, you know, just do weird skewed perspectives, and anatomy doesn't 100% have to be perfect. So that's why I choose cartoons for the way that I draw. I just like it and I find it so much more enjoyable, get a lot more out of it. Today I'm using the 12.9-inch iPad Pro with Procreate. That being said, this is one tutorial. Everything I'm showing you today, you can do at home without a fancy drawing tablet. If you want to follow along with just a paper and a pencil and an eraser, you're more than welcome to. Everything that I show you today, you're going to be able to do traditionally as well. It's just basic drawing principles. So let's go ahead and hop into it. The first thing starting out, when you think about a hand, I usually start with the palm. And the palm is basically almost like a pentagon shape. And I say pentagon because if you look at your hand, this is going to be from the top down, a flat hand from the top down. If you look at your hand, you'll see this is basically a pentagon shape here, with the center of the pentagon being the middle finger. And you'll see too, of course, you have just the index finger next to the middle finger, and you have two fingers on this left side. So you'll need more room over here. When you do a middle line here for your middle finger, you're going to need more room for the ring finger and the pinky finger. If you draw, you know, a perfect shape here, it's not going to work out right because things are going to be a little bit lopsided. So I'll do that, throw in a circle here for the wrist joint, and then pull down here for the wrist. So now that we've got that laid out, our extra area is over here, so that means that our thumb is going to be over here. So the main thing to remember when you're drawing, the thumb is always going to come out from the bottom of that line. Likewise, the index finger is always going to come out of this line here. And then your pinky finger is always going to come out of this line. If you move these in too much, it's going to look really weird because you see it does not indent here with the finger. The finger is actually attached flush with the sides. So that's something really important to remember. And if you just follow these lines up and then look at your hand, you'll see that, you know, the middle finger, of course, is the longest and it kind of curves out. So if you want to draw a line here and around, so that way you have the basic shape of how the fingers are going to lay. And then if you just want to go ahead and start adding in fingers, basically just some rounded rectangle shapes basically is what you're looking for. Nothing too crazy. We're going to keep this pretty simple. Kind of have the fingers splayed a little bit so they're not touching and they're kind of flared out a tad bit. And then the key thing here is, you know, just to remember that all the fingers are close to being the same width across. You don't want one being super fat and one being super skinny, but that kind of gives you, you know, the basic shape for the hand. This is super basic, but this is really what you need to start out with to kind of understand the shape and how everything connects on the hand. Then you can go, of course, back in here and erase some of your marks to get everything kind of cleaned up. This is obviously what I would do with a regular eraser. So if you're following along, and you can see here, I mean, everything's really kind of blocky, but this gives you the overall basis to kind of start with. And then I would just start pulling in here and kind of rounding these out if you're doing a cartoony design, so they look a little bit more natural, not so blocky. So that's the basic principle starting out. Of course, if you're doing a female hand, you want to pay attention to the width of everything. That's one of the key things to remember too, is when you're starting to do a hand, you want to look at the overall design and think, okay, what's this hand going to be attached to? If it's a female hand, obviously it's going to be quite a bit narrower than what a male's hand is going to be. Also, the fingers are going to be a little bit more narrower and pointed towards the ends to kind of give that more feminine quality to them. So kind of keep that in mind as you're doing them. If you're doing like a heavier set character, of course you're going to need something that's a little bit more wide. The wrist is going to be wider as well. So with that, you know, you might want to start out with just a more short and stout pentagon shape here. And even the wrist here, your joint's going to be bigger and the wrist might come out a little bit wider here, more flush with the sides of the palm. And then for the thumbs and fingers, make those a little bit more short and stubby. Might be the better way to kind of show, yeah, this is a, you know, a kind of heavy set guy. You'll see it's a lot more reading towards the fatter side of a character. And then of course you can go back in and erase all your lines. So that's the basics starting out. One tip that I would give you is, now that you know, I mean, the basics as far as, you know, drawing the palm shape and then the fingers coming out, I would recommend, number one, just taking the next 2 times you draw, if it's 2 days, 2 weeks, whatever, and draw nothing but hands over and over again. There's a lot of good sheets online. I found this one from Liron Pure, just hands in a bunch of different positions. Of course, I'm not going to be able to do a tutorial and show you how to draw every single position that a hand would be in. It would take hours, if not days, to do that. So finding a sheet like this, and what I would recommend doing, if you've got an iPad or a drawing tablet, you know, just import it like this and drop the opacity and draw over top of it. If you don't have a drawing tablet and you're doing this at home with a pencil and paper, just print this out on a sheet of computer paper and draw over top of it with like a Sharpie marker. And what you can do is you want to look more of just the basics of how all this is being set up. So you can see how the palm is in each of these drawings, and you can start to get kind of an idea of, okay, this is the basic shapes that I'm going with. So you'll get the feel and the idea of where everything is being placed at, and then just loosely go over top. Don't trace it, but just get the basic shapes in. And I guarantee you, spending a few days doing this over and over again, even if you just use the same one and just use it over and over again, and your mind's going to start seeing, okay, this lays a certain way because it's next to this, and, you know, the palm comes down like this, and okay, I see how this connects. And just do this over and over again, and I guarantee you will start to see an improvement in your abilities, your understanding of the lines and everything else. Likewise, if you've got a cell phone and you're not sure on how to draw your hand in a certain position, take out your cell phone, put your hand in front of you, snap a picture. If you're using the drawing tablet, import that picture in there and do this technique and trace over top, giving your basic structure. If you're doing a cartoon, you don't want to trace it too hardcore because you don't want it to look too realistic. So you still want to have that loose kind of cartoony feel to it. But I guarantee you, just using this basic tip of drawing the palm out and understanding how everything, you know, falls into place with each other, just with these basic shapes, is going to do wonders for your abilities. So keep that in mind. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of the most used hands that I do. And I draw these a little bit different depending on the case. So, of course, I draw a lot of animals. You've seen that. My animals tend to be kind of on the chubbier, cute, cuddly side. So instead of using, you know, the pentagon shape that I showed you before, I usually start out with a pretty fat circle, and this is going to be the palm here. Like I said, with that heavier set character, you're not going to want the wrist to come out. So especially on animals and stuff of that nature, I just pull lines down from this circle. That's actually going to be the wrist coming up into the hand. You're not going to have that break in the wrist between the palm and the hand. It's going to be all one coming out of there. And then I'll just start to do some circles in here. And these are going to be the fingers. We're just going to do 3 fingers here, basically like a paw. We're going to make this kind of like a bear paw. And then you'll see I do this one a little bit differently. I'll do a circle here in the center, so it's going to be more of an angled look to the hand. And then once you have that, I'm going to drop the opacity on this to make it easier to draw over here. And once you have that, then you can just start kind of going back in and tracing your lines. I'm going to have this kind of making a backwards splayed look with the hand. And to do that, you'll basically pull the backside of these fingers away from the rest of the design, and you'll see how that looks here. So this, it looks like he's reaching for something because you have the fingers going kind of backwards like that. That's one of the things with hands, why they're so important. Next to like the eyes and eyebrows, I think hands are the most expressive portion of a design. So you can get, you know, quite a bit of information for the viewer just from making a really kind of dynamic hand positioning. I'm going to pull these up. And instead of tracing this around perfectly, like I've shown in some of my other videos, I'm just going to use some tapered lines across here to finish up these lines. It's going to follow that same line that I drew, but they're not going to connect, and it's going to look just a little bit nicer overall. So we've got the hand there, and then let's draw the paw, the pads in, so you can see what this looks like as a bear. All right, let's turn that off. So you can see super basic. There was not a lot to it, just basic shapes. Basic circles pretty much. The only thing we really went and did short of the circles was we curved those circles backwards, so it had that more dynamic feel to it. But as you can see, I mean, this is a pretty cute paw. You could have, you know, this attached to a bear reaching for a honey pot or a limb or something like that. This would be the same technique that I would also use, like I said, for kind of a heavier set character. So I prefer that more rounded look when I'm doing those. So with that and doing it more like a human hand, let's go ahead and do this again, just with a heavier set character. So let's start out with our circle here, pull that around there, and then this, to make it more like a human, I'm gonna square these off a little bit more. I'm going to put 4 of them. There we go. And put that center palm part coming up and around. So with that, you can see it's kind of more of a heavier set guy. Kind of has the same shape and the feel of the bear one, but just by squaring off those fingers a little bit more, it looks a little bit more human. And you can even go as far as, you know, putting a fingernail in there if you want. These are going to be the inside portions of the fingers, so you're not going to have fingernails on those. But that's another option too. So let's clear that off, and let's go to the next thing I wanted to show you. One of the most common things that I think people have problems with, but is widely used, and you need to use it quite a bit, is the hand holding on to something. So in this case, it's going to be, it could be a broom handle or a sword handle, what have you. We're going to use that as the basis. So let's, I'm going to make another sketch layer here. So once again, let's get the basic shape of the hand down. So we use that kind of pentagon shape there. Of course, this time it's going to be a little bit more smushed because the hand's being wrapped around. And then let's go ahead and get the joint here, and then the wrist coming down. Okay, so what I usually start out with here is I will have the index finger coming around first. The index finger is going to sit basically on top of all the other fingers, and it's going to be the one you can see the most out of, and it's going to be the one that's sitting on top of kind of the stack as it goes down. So really easy. Just kind of follow this line around and just swoosh it. We're going to do kind of a circular, really cartoony hand, almost like a Mickey Mouse type of thing on this one. So just swoosh this down, and just do it a few times to get the feel of it. You just want this to be one kind of motion coming around. So since this is also the one that you can see the most out of, that's sitting on top, the other key point is I usually make this little swoosh right there, and that's going to be where that crease is on the hand and shows you that this is the back of the hand coming down then, and you can see the most out of this finger. And then from there, you just basically keep going around with these fingers here. And that's it. Super easy. Like I said, not a lot to it. Doesn't take a whole lot to make it look like that. And then the last thing you'll need to do is the thumb. So if you bring the thumb up and around, and of course it's going to come up and cover the parts of the fingers there. It's going to kind of overlap. So we've got that overlap there. And then if we just go back into our lines here for the handle, we'll just erase those. And you can kind of see how the handle just kind of pops out of the hand now. And if we go back in and kind of add the crease in there for the palm, and then pull this one back down and around, we've got a pretty good realistic-ish looking hand. I mean, it's got the anatomy right as far as where everything goes. Of course, it is on the cartoony side, but it looks like it's actually holding the handle of whatever this is. So that's the thing you want more than anything else, instead of going for, super realism on a cartoon like this, is look at it and see if it looks right. And if it looks right and everything lines up correctly like it would if you were holding this, you kind of did your job and did everything correctly. So from here on out, if you want to, that's the other great thing about cartoons. If you want to put thumbnails and fingernails in here, you can. You don't always have to. It's not necessary. For me personally, I usually like to do kind of like a flat oval shape here. I always make the line here farthest away from the tip of the finger thicker, and then pull it thinner as I go to the top, and then put a little line underneath there. And then with this, you do have to think about perspective here, because this is kind of the under part of the finger here, so everything's kind of set on an angle. So when you do the nails for this, they're going to be kind of covered a little bit on this side, so you'll want them to start over there. If you started them on this other side or put them right in the middle, it's going to look off. So you do want to consider perspective when you're doing this. And we'll just throw those in there real quick, and there you go. So that's one possibility. Of course, too, if you want to do like squared off nails, you can do those too. The biggest thing that I would recommend when you're doing fingernails, though, is make sure you're not doing them too heavy. Get a lot of line weight in there, because if you go just super heavy, it's going to look really cheesy. like that just looks horrible. So if you start out like with a square fingernail, just start out with the line here and then a thicker line and pulled up to lighter. It's going to look a lot better. Likewise, when you go to color them in, you don't want them too dark. You don't want them too light. You want it really to not even stand out. You just want it to blend in well with the design. So keep that in mind. And then finally, let's do one more here. This last one is a lot of times when a character is holding something, the thing that they're holding might be too big to grasp like that. So let's do like a flower pot. We're going to do a character holding a flower pot down at their side. So this is going to be like the arm coming down. So obviously, flower pot's huge. You're not going to grasp it like that. It's going to be like trying to palm a basketball if it's a decent sized flower pot. So instead of having the fingers wrap around this side, we're going to actually have the character kind of cupping it from the bottom. So we got to kind of angle this palm. If you picture that this is the bottom of the flower pot down here, we're going to angle this palm so it sits underneath there. And then from there, you can kind of pull up the fingers. With this is going to be the pinky finger that comes out, but it's going to be the one that's everything else kind of is underneath because of the perspective of the picture. So once again, if you just curve this and do a swoosh, and then that little line again to give that bend and crease, and then you can just go around and add in the extra fingers. And then of course back here you're going to have the thumb coming off like that, so you can just draw the thumb out to the side, and then we'll erase all of our lines here that we use to lay everything out. You can see this is super basic, but it really reads pretty well, and you can tell exactly, you know, what it's supposed to be. I think a lot of times people try to make the hands too complicated, and by doing that, you really kind of run the risk of ruining the design, especially if it's a simple basic design and you're putting too much effort into the hands. It's not going to read all that well, and they're going to look totally different from the rest of the design. It's going to be really distracting. So there we go. And once again, if you wanted to, throw fingernails on here, you could. Totally up to you what you want to do. Of course, one of my favorite things is doing monsters. Monsters, you can do really fun fingernails. Those I usually do kind of squared off fingernails and then have them coming up above the actual finger itself. With those, usually too, do where it hits after the cuticle part where it attaches to the skin, have like this extra portion here that swings around kind of outside. Just do these huge nails coming off, and then you can break these kind of in the center. It's kind of fun to do these for monster designs. You can see they're kind of build them up, and you can do some pretty cool stuff with that. And then the thumb's always fun too if it's off to the side like this, because of course you can't see the nail at the top, but this is going to be the nail coming from behind. So you got a kind of fun little swooped out nail bed from behind, which is really fun. But yeah, I like doing fingernails, especially on monsters. Those are a lot of fun. So there we go. Got a few different ways that you can approach doing hands. Like I said, more than anything else, just get one of those practice sheets and just draw your basic lines on top of there to get, the basic building blocks of drawing the hands down, and it'll lead to so many great things, I promise. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. As always, thank you for watching. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. We've also got the Keep Creating a Learn, Draw, Share art community on Facebook. The link is in the description below. Hop on over and join. We've got the weekly art challenge on there, and people are posting new artwork all the time. Would really like to have you guys come and join us over there. As for me, I can be found online, bjdell.com, as well as on Instagram and Twitter, bjdell. So until next time, keep creating.